Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine Bennis podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 4, The Sniffing Accountant. Hello everyone. How's everyone doing out there? I hope you're doing well. I'm enjoying a nice cloudy day here in Colorado, a rare cloudy day. We usually get nice bright sunny days, which I enjoy as well. But there's something about a cloudy day that I really like, so that's what's going on. We're going to have some thunderstorms later, which I also enjoy. So yeah, it's it's all good stuff for me. Other than that, maybe I'm enjoying this cloudy atmosphere because I'm in this sort of true crime haze right now. I just finished a book this morning called Slender Man. It's by Kathleen Hale. And it's this true crime story about a very violent crime that happened back in 2014 in Wisconsin. And it's pretty tragic. And, well, of course, it's true crime. So, but it's fascinating. I don't want to give too much away, but if you are into that kind of stuff, kind of like quiet neighborhood, but then something really crazy and violent happens, I highly recommend Slender Man. If you are familiar with the case, you know sort of how tragic it is on so many levels. And so I'm just like processing all of that today. All I have to say, because I don't want to give too much away if anyone out there wants to read this book, but mental health is a real thing and children should not be tried as adults. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to move on and transition into a happier world of Seinfeld and this episode. I do love this episode. The synopsis for The Sniffing Accountant is as follows. Accountant. I don't know how to say it. Constant sniffing leads Jerry to suspect his accountant is a junkie. Kramer and Newman join him in an investigation of the truth. George's fascination with fabric loses him a job as a bra salesman. Elaine breaks up with her novelist boyfriend when his punctuation doesn't match his sentiment. This episode was written by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, so we start out in Monk's. Elaine is telling George and Jerry about her new boyfriend and that she likes him a lot. She said that she met him at the office, so Jerry figures out, oh, well, he's a writer, obviously. So she sets the scene. She was sitting on the receptionist desk, and this guy comes up to me and starts feeling my material. Oh, and before that, I'm sorry, she mentions that she was looking pretty hot. She was wearing her slingback pumps. George asks what those are. He doesn't know. Oh, and Elaine says, ask your mother. You live with her now, don't you? Anyway, so bitchy. So anyway, this guy comes up to her and starts feeling her jacket between his thumb and forefinger. So she asks, what do you think? And he says, gabardine. And I said, yeah. George thinks he sounds like a cool guy, but Jerry says, sounds like a jerk, felt your material. And George then asks Jerry where he got the sweater he's wearing. It's a pretty big, like chunky, light blue speckled sweater. Very unlike Jerry. And Jerry's kind of like, hey, you know what? I found it in the back of my closet. And George doesn't like it. Elaine sees someone out the window, and it turns out to be Barry, she and Jerry's accountant. So they signal him to come in. He comes in and they're chatting. And while they're having a conversation, he keeps sniffing. What, you got a cold? No. Well, Barry asks where the bathroom is. Jerry seems pretty reluctant, but he points him in the direction, and so Barry exits. Ba 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 ba, boom ba dum boom 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 boom. We have a Gilmore Girls Seinfeld connection. The actor who plays Barry is John Capellos. I don't know how to say his name. I should know because I have enjoyed him in John Hughes movies for years. He was in 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club. He played the oily bohunk in 16 Candles, and he played the janitor in The Breakfast Club, a really cool role. And, he was also on Gilmore Girls. He is in the episode called Fight Face, and he played this orientation director for Rory's community service. Rory stole a boat. She has to do community service. And John Kapelos plays the guy who is in charge of her community service orientation. So there's your connection. Gilmore Girls, Seinfeld. I feel like we haven't had one in a while, so I got excited when I saw that. All right, so then as Barry is in the bathroom, Jerry and George start freaking out about all that sniffing. You don't think? Elaine's like, no, I've known this guy since college. He doesn't do drugs. And she says, well, maybe it's the cold weather. Jerry says, today's not cold. Anyway, George has to go. His parents are expecting him. Don't forget to wash your hands before supper. All right, my take on this scene. First of all, I just love how Elaine is just so snarky, so bitchy to George for no obvious reason. She's just in a mood and decides to pick on George. It's just, you know what? We don't need an explanation. It's just how it is. And that he just takes it, which makes it even better. He doesn't even seem like he's getting that irritated. He's sort of like, all right. They just have the best relationship. In this scene, we sort of get introduced to, I'm going to call it feeling herself Elaine. And she's so much fun to watch. The whole response to, well, does he like you? What do you think? And I was looking pretty hot. Oh, man, it's done so unapologetically. And hell yes, feel yourself, Lainey. You should. After Barry comes in and the whole sniffing suspicion starts, Elaine is the voice of reason here. That's sort of the role she's taking on in this whole kind of suspicion, theory, whatever you want to call it. And, she's the one defending Barry, saying, no, that's not what this is. He's not on drugs. And as I was watching this, just me and my sort of writer brain, I was kind of going like, oh, are we falling into Elaine being maybe like a killjoy, that female archetype where it's like the female always has to be the one kind of pointing out what the men are doing wrong? And I kind of was like, well, it's not quite that, but it's sort of killjoy adjacent in that she's not joining in on this conspiracy theory about him being addicted to cocaine, but more so it's just her being smarter than the guys. So just to give you an idea of sometimes how my brain works when I'm like, I am hyper aware of like when women fall into these archetypes that we've seen for so long and sort of been conditioned to slot women into as we watch them on shows. So I've talked about it before. One of the things I love about the Elaine character is that she doesn't really fit into that so easily. And especially as the show goes on, she kind of is the antithesis of those archetypes. So yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of watching this going like, oh yeah, Elaine's the only one kind of going like, guys, no. But I think she's more the voice of reason than the killjoy. Next, we are at the Costanzas. They are having supper. George, it's just, we get right away a taste of what George has to go through living in that house. Everything is scrutinized down to his ketchup use. But I love that George was like, you know what? I bought this ketchup. I bought it just so I can use as much as I want. Frank tells George that he got him an interview to be a bra salesman. I mean, the interview is going to be on the day that George was going to look for sneakers, but Frank doesn't care. You can look for sneakers the next day. Estelle needs to chime in and says he doesn't know anything about bras. I know a little. Well, then they get into this whole thing about Frank telling George, well, you should educate yourself a little bit. Tells Estelle, you get a bra so he can look at it. Estelle, of course, doesn't want to do that. George tries to show, like, look, I know what they're made of, Lycra spandex. Now get out of here. I mean, this scene, it's not an Elaine scene, so I'm not going to kind of go through all the details, but I just have to say these scenes are just magic from beginning to end. Everything about it, performance, writing, so funny. Anyway, you know this scene. Estelle takes too long to get the bra. Frank tries to give his own lesson. You got the A, the B, the C, and the D. That's the biggest. It's so great. Estelle comes back finally. It is Lycra spandex. You think you know everything. George is like, fine, I got it. Puts the bra down. You got ketchup on it. Next, we are at Jerry's apartment. Jerry is entering his place with Kramer. He's telling Kramer all about the sniffing. Well, Kramer doesn't like the sound of that. He went in on a CD with him and Newman gave him money too. So Kramer for sure thinks this. And it's not surprising. I feel like Kramer would very much believe conspiracy theories. So once Jerry reveals that Barry at one point used the bathroom, oh my gosh, Kramer 100% believes Barry is a cokehead and that they need to do something about this. Jerry takes off that big chunky sweater and says, man, this really itches me. You want it? And Kramer couldn't accept it fast enough. All right, the next scene, we are at Elaine's apartment. Elaine enters her place to find that Jake has cleaned the entire apartment and now you're making dinner. You're perfect. You're a perfect man. They hug and, a little more material fondling there. Elaine asks for her messages and Jake gives her a piece of paper that he wrote them down on. She's going through them. Yeah, I'll call you back. And then she gets so excited because she sees a message about her friend Myra. Myra had the baby. Oh, she's so excited. It's so great. And she's kind of just looking at the piece of paper and makes a little noise. Jake's like, what's going on? She keeps saying, it's nothing. No, tell me. Well, then she points out that Jake didn't use an exclamation point. When he wrote Myra had the baby, he didn't use an exclamation point. Well, Jake doesn't really see the issue with this. And she says, well, look, I mean, if I was taking that message, I would use an exclamation point. And Jake kind of jokes with her, keeping it light, saying, well, maybe I don't use them as haphazardly as you do. And that offends Elaine. You don't think that someone having a baby warrants an exclamation point? And they go back and forth a little bit. I mean, she's just getting more and more upset. And he's like, hey, I just jotted down a message. And that he doesn't like exclamation points. Well, she says, you know what? You should learn to use them. I would use one right now, like in the way I'm talking, on this one and on that one. Well, Jake has a response to that. How about this one? I'm leaving. That's Elaine's response. My take on this scene, this plot with Elaine and Jake Jarmel is one of the best ones on Seinfeld, bar none. I love it. Leave it to Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld to think about very specific conflicts that only could happen in this type of a relationship. It's an editor and a writer. So what would they fight about? Punctuation. Of course, she's going to correct everything he writes. It doesn't matter if it's a message or a novel. I love that. And what a fun, and we've never seen anything like that. What a fun thing to write and just a brilliant thing to think up. I really like, his name's Marty Rackham. He's the actor who plays Jake. I think he's fantastic. He has such great chemistry with JLD. Super funny, really charming. And it's probably why they brought him back. All of you fans will know that. He comes back for a couple of more episodes as Jake Jarmel. The back and forth between Jake and Elaine is so believable. I like how sort of relaxed it is. And I love that Jake, we learn sort of a lot about Jake's personality in this short scene. He thinks it's sort of a light discussion. He's kind of chuckling, and even though Elaine's taking this very seriously. But the turning point was the joke about her using exclamation points haphazardly. Whew, Elaine turns pretty angry pretty quickly. And she's sort of accusing him that by not being excited about her friend Myra's baby, that he doesn't really care about her. And that's a stretch, but this is Elaine's version, I think, of being a nitpicky person in a relationship. With Jerry, it's more trivial. She eats her peas one at a time. But her version of sort of being this looking for something wrong with a guy, it's to overanalyze a jotted down phone message. And this is a great example of the writers not allowing Elaine to be exempt from being just as neurotic as the men on the show. And I think that is why, she's such a great character, because we get to see her be ridiculous in this way. I just love every moment of this scene. I used to watch this specific scene over and over again. I'd use the rewind button on my VHS tape back in high school. And JLD's choice to end that scene with that over-the-top laugh when Jake storms out, it's something I just don't think any other actress would do. I mean, who reacts like that? Like, it's like she doesn't quite know what to do, but I'm just going to laugh at this to show it doesn't affect me. But no, it really fucking affects me. I can't believe he just stormed out. It's surprising and amusing. And, JLD can do that. She's so great. All right, next we're at Jerry's apartment. Elaine is shoveling ice cream into her face and telling Jerry about the exclamation point incident. He thinks she's crazy. He's never heard of a relationship being affected by punctuation. She says, I found it very troubling that he didn't use one. Kramer enters and asks about Druggy Barry. And Elaine's like, oh, he's not on drugs. Elaine suggests, you know what? Call him right now. See if he's sniffing right now. Well, we find out that he skipped out and went to South America. Well, that just convinces them more. So what? Elaine says. I love the back and forth. Who goes to South America? People go to South America. And they come back with things taped to their small intestine. Elaine points out that Jerry is impugning an entire continent based on a few bad apples. And he's like, yeah, I am. I don't care. Newman enters. He's wondering about Barry as well. He hears the South America thing. He's panicking. Elaine again is trying to be the voice of reason. You guys, this is all speculation and hearsay. Kramer then thinks about setting up a sting. Elaine laughs it off. What are you going to do? Dress up like Arab sheiks and phony beards? She's like, come on, this isn't going to work. Jerry thinks it's a pretty good idea. My take on this scene, I've mentioned before how I love the constant eating in Jerry's apartment by all the friends. In a weird way, it sort of grounds everyone and it grounds the relationship. So Elaine eating the ice cream straight out of the container while chatting with Jerry, it just adds like a layer of sort of comfort. And I don't know, you just understand more about these people as an audience when you see stuff like that. Again, the whole mantra of the show is no hugging, no learning with the main four, but they show their closeness in other ways. And I think, if you're bold enough to eat someone's ice cream straight out of the container that they're going to have to eat out of too, and they don't mind, that's a pretty close relationship. Even though Jerry is pointing out how nuts Elaine sounds with this whole exclamation point thing, I like that she sticks to her point of view. And of course she would, but I just like that they made that choice for Elaine. Because, she's been thinking about this since the fight happened. So she's talked herself into how rational this whole thing is. Okay, I'm going to indulge the Elaine point of view here because, I totally see the absurdity of her actions here and why it's funny and why it's like when you say that you broke up over an exclamation point, it sounds ridiculous. But I just want to indulge it for a little bit. Like, you're dating this guy, he's the perfect man, just everything about him's great. And then you see this message written by him, and I'm going to say, if you see Myra had the baby, exclamation point versus no exclamation point, the no exclamation point one looks weird. It just looks weird. I wrote it down both ways. I posted it on the Hot and Heavy Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not following us on Instagram, it is Hot Heavy Elaine. Please find us and follow. But I took a poll and 100% of the people said it looks better with an exclamation point. So it looks weird if it's not there. It would be like writing "you won the lottery" without an exclamation point. It's just certain phrases do warrant exclamation points, regardless of your opinion about exclamation points. You can hate exclamation points, Jake Jarmel, but certain things warrant it. And so I completely agree with Elaine. And then to further that along, what does that say about Jake? Can he not feel excitement about normal things? Does he not care about Elaine's friends? Does he have issues expressing his emotions? I mean, I think this is what troubled Elaine. Now, did she need to blow up at Jake the way she did? Well, no, but that's why we love Elaine. It wouldn't be our Elaine if she didn't have those types of blow-ups. All right, so moving on. That was my indulgence. I do see Elaine's point of view here. I'm telling you, just write it down and you'll see something is missing, and that thing is an exclamation point. All right, next we're in Jerry's car. Jerry, Kramer, and Newman are all sitting and waiting for Barry to leave his office so that Kramer can follow him, and he's just going to ask if he's interested. Finally, Jerry sees him go into a bar, and then Kramer goes in to follow. Next, we are in the bar. This is a famous scene. Kramer sits next to Barry, starts chatting him up. We see the iconic moment of Michael Richards chugging the beer and smoking the cigarette at the same time. Oh, just brilliant physical comedy there. Just, what can you say? Such commitment. You can tell Barry's getting increasingly uncomfortable and also sniffing. Kramer asks if he has a cold. I don't think so. Me neither, Kramer says. Quick little scene back at the car. Jerry and Newman are talking about Dento tape versus Glide, dental floss. Anyway, back to the bar. Kramer is making small talk with Barry, and then, well, Barry has to excuse himself to the bathroom. Kramer says he's hip to the whole bathroom scene. Barry doesn't know what the hell this guy's talking about. He said, you know what, don't take this the wrong way, but when I come back, I'm sitting over there. Back to the car. Newman's trying the floss. Nope, he likes the thick tape. And then he lays his used floss on Jerry's dashboard. Back to the bar. Kramer goes into the bathroom, kicks the stall door open, and takes a Polaroid of Barry on the toilet. What kind of nut are you? All right, next we are at George's bra interview. George does the George thing and lies his way into a job, tells a totally fake story about the first time he'd ever seen a brassiere. Mr. Farkas is so impressed and hires him right on the spot, barring some unforeseen incident, of course. I'll see you Monday, 9 a.m. If you don't mind, sir, I'll be here at 8. Outstanding. And there's a dramatic exit from the office. George feels great. He's so proud of himself. He goes to the elevator and sees a woman and, decides to feel her material. She flips out. Farkas, get out here. Turns out it's Miss de Grandmont, and the company is named de Grandmont. So we can see here that's not a good thing that George did. She calls George a perverted little weasel and tells Farkas that if he's here on Monday, you're not. Take your pick. Get out. I'm so sorry, Miss de Grandmont. The actress who plays Miss de Grandmont is Krista Miller. She went on to star in The Drew Carey Show, Scrubs, and Cougar Town. I think she's really funny in this scene. I love how immediately pissed off she gets. Any role where you can call George a perverted little weasel, how fun is that day? I just think that's like the lottery of guest starring roles. Now, she will return as a different character as George's girlfriend, who draws the unattractive doodle of him. And I can see why they brought her back. I think she's really funny. And I'm looking forward to seeing that episode. It's a funny one. Next, we are at Pendant Publishing in Mr. Littman's office. Mr. Littman is having a meeting with Elaine to talk about the Jake Jarmel book. I believe you worked very closely with him on this. Yes. Yes, I did. He's concerned with the inordinate amount of exclamation points in the final edit. Elaine explains she felt the writing lacked a certain amount of emotion and intensity. So Mr. Littman reads a couple of the passages. It was a damp and chilly afternoon, so I decided to put on my sweatshirt. Elaine says, I just felt like the character didn't like to be chilly. Ah, okay. I pulled the lever on the machine, but the Clark bar didn't come out. Well, you know how frustrating that can be with quarters and quarters and nothing comes out. Littman says, get rid of the exclamation points. He hates exclamation points. And Elaine just immediately relents. Okay, I will. All right. And she exits, but not without facing the wrong way and having to awkwardly twirl around. My take on this scene. Wow. Another fantastic Elaine scene. Richard Fancy, who plays Mr. Littman, and JLD just have a great chemistry. Every scene with the two of them. We'll see more of them down the road. Oh my gosh, so funny. And I have to say, Richard Fancy really shines in this scene so much. I laugh so hard every time he says, my sweatshirt. And he just he looks up suddenly. His eyes are big. It's so funny. And I personally can never say the word sweatshirt without saying it like sweatshirt. It's just too funny. It's just my normal way of saying it now. And now that fall is approaching, hopefully I will have to reach for my sweatshirt because there will be damp and chilly afternoons. I can't wait. The Clark bar didn't come out is super funny as well. But I don't know, somehow the sweatshirt line is just slightly funnier to me. We get to see nervous Elaine here. I love all of the JLD choices with nervous Elaine, sort of those tics that she gets, the swallowing, the clearing her throat. I love that little stuttering thing. Chilly. So funny. I just wanted to point out the sort of combination of choices that JLD makes here. Now, we obviously see that Elaine is nervous talking to Mr. Lippman about this. I think, she knows what's coming. She's not unaware of all the exclamation points she put in this final edit, but that she's also very, she's trying to hold her head up and answer all of these very valid concerns that Lippman has, like super confidently. JLD dances between these two emotions so well. She knows this was ridiculous what she did, but she's not going to let Mr. Lippman know. But even at the end with the okay, I will. Yeah, okay. She's not going to argue with her boss because, again, the edit is ridiculous. She knows it was retaliatory and not good editing at all. And then as she's exiting, that stumbling and twirl like in the hallway, JLD doesn't waste a moment. The entire time she is thinking and making these choices. I just need to acknowledge that because this is why I love her so much. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Jerry, Newman, and Kramer are drafting a letter terminating their relationship with Barry, effective immediately. And Kramer says, exclamation point. Elaine's sitting on the couch just reacting to all of this. Oh my gosh, especially the exclamation point. She says, you guys still have no proof. Kramer says he was sniffing like crazy around me. Apparently the sniffing is enough. After ending the letter with a double exclamation point, Newman offers to take it to mail for them. And then you see Kramer slip him the Polaroid picture to send along with the letter. The pizza guy comes and he starts sniffing as he's standing next to Kramer. Well, they find out the sweater is made of mohair and the pizza guy's allergic to mohair. You mean you just started sniffing? Yeah, mohair does it to me every time. Elaine says, see, it was the sweater. I told you he wasn't a drug addict. Oh no, the letter. Newman, it's got exclamation points written all over it. Not to mention the picture of him on the toilet. The what? That part always gets me too. I love how Jerry says that. Then we see a quick scene of Newman approaching the mailbox. He allows a woman to go ahead of him. He makes the bad mistake, too, of feeling her jacket material, and she sicks her boyfriend on him. Get your hands off of me! Johnny comes running after Newman. Newman flees, doesn't send the letter, drops it on the ground. Now, this actress we've seen before, it's Patrika Darbo. She played one of George's colleagues when he was a real estate agent. We don't know if it's the same character. There was also a Gilmore Girls Seinfeld connection, but I will spare you another singing of my makeshift theme song. You're welcome. All right, next we're at the Costanza's house. Frank and Estelle are furious with George for blowing this bra salesman job. Who goes around feeling people's material? What can be gained by feeling a person's material? It's insanity. I just can't do anything but my impressions of them. Whatever happened to my that's a lovely dress you have on? May I have this dance? George, reading a glamour magazine, gets whacked with a dish towel by Estelle. Oh, just the quintessential Costanza scene. All right, next we're at the last scene of the episode at Monk's. Elaine and Kramer are together at a booth, and Elaine's like, wow, you are so lucky Newman never mailed that letter. Well, Jerry comes in livid because apparently Barry is filing Chapter 11, and Jerry lost all of his money because Newman never mailed the letter to dissolve the relationship prior to his filing Chapter 11. I guess we never really get an answer if it was the sweater or if he was a cokehead, maybe just both. We see Newman enter Monk's to get a pair of bear claws, please. As Jerry goes to confront him, a woman approaches and starts feeling Jerry's shirt. She likes it. What is it? Half silk, half cotton, half linen. How can you go wrong? The actress who plays this woman is Maria Stanton. Looks like she did a stint on The Young and the Restless for a few years. I've never really been crazy about this performance. I don't really get the chomping on the gum and that wide-eyed expression. Like, it's just a little odd. I'm just not a fan. I bet she was directed that way. I don't know, but not my favorite. Sorry, Maria. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Best-selling author Jake Jarmel has dazzled us with electric novels like What's with the Pepper? What's with the Paprika? And What's with the Tarragon? Literary awards, movie adaptations, Broadway musicals. Jarmel's writing has been celebrated in so many ways. But now, an unreleased novel, written before all of his spicy success, is coming to a bookstore near you. What's with the Clark Bar would have been Jake Jarmel's debut, but for reasons unknown to the public, the book was scrapped by his old publisher. But now, his former editor and ex-lover is publishing the final edit of this early work, complete with exclamation points. Jarmel has been very vocal about his disdain for exclamation points, and now with this unauthorized release of his lost novel, we may be close to understanding why that is. What's with the Clark Bar, exclamation edition, follows Kevin Gorman, the food detective we know and love from the series, as he solves New Hampshire's most gruesome murder. But with the inclusion of over 400 exclamation points, Kevin takes on an almost manic and giddy persona.
I made sure to double check that my car was locked. When I looked down, I saw my socks didn't match. My favorite color has always been yellow.
You can pre-order a copy of What's with the Clark Bar, exclamation edition by visiting any Walden bookstore. Due to some legal proceedings brought by Mr. Jarmel, the release date is still yet to be determined. But when all of that is sorted out, you will receive a free Clark Bar with purchase. What's with the Clark Bar, exclamation edition. This book doesn't lack any emotion or intensity. And we're back. The extras in this episode, well, there was nothing really of note to mention, so I'm moving on to Contributor Corner. Greg sent in some thoughts this week, and this is what Greg had to say. I love in the opening scene how Elaine is talking about her new guy, and George makes a dig and she makes one right back. Yet it's so slyly done, it's not like it causes an argument. Elaine just takes the dig about finding a flaw with the new guy, and then George does the same regarding the living with his parents remark. The two of them together kind of make a dig on Jerry's hideous sweater, George with words, and Elaine once again purely with her face. It all happens so smoothly while we still get all the info to set up the episode. Yes, I think that's why this scene works so well, that setup scene, because we're getting everything that we need to know about the episode, but it's also just full of true character moments, both verbally and facially. It's so funny. I do think, like I said earlier, that I feel like Elaine here is definitely more salty of the two. Sure, George does make the little dig at her with, well, keep looking, you'll find something, to find something wrong with Jake. But yeah, I think her response is just, again, I'm in a mood and I'm not going to let anything go. So I think Elaine is a little, I don't know if it's equal, and maybe that's not what you're saying, Greg, I apologize, but I feel like Elaine, for whatever reason, has just decided, no, everything George says, I'm just going to have to make a comment on. Next, Greg says, while I know this is an Elaine Bennis podcast, I still have to once again just say how perfect Jerry Stiller and Estelle Harris are. I have never seen more perfect casting, and it absolutely works with how Jason Alexander plays George. You understand why George is the way he is when you see these two. When Jerry says, "You asked me to get a pair of underwear, I'm back in 2 seconds." It's just brilliant. I know, I'm trying not to spend too much time on the non-Elaine stuff, but I mean, every Costanza scene in this episode, and I mean, for the rest of the series, it's too good. It's just so perfect and good. And the chemistry and the casting and everything about it is perfection. And we're just so lucky we're able to see it. Greg goes on to say, why is Jake Jarmel already in Elaine's apartment when she gets home? She just met this guy. I get that she's super into him, but already he has a key? Keith Morrison must watch this and cringe. I guess I never really thought about it. Yeah, I thought about it to the extent of like, okay, well, he has a key at this point. I didn't really think about the timing and how long they've been together, but Yeah, probably not the safest decision for Elaine to do that, but hey, you know what? It got us that great scene, so I'm fine with it. Next, Greg says, I do like the argument about the exclamation points. It is a very minor thing to get upset about, but I like how the escalation of it is because she doesn't let it go. And then neither of them backs down on how they feel about punctuation usage. He's going to be as stubborn about his stance as she is on hers. I kind of like this character because he's not one of her usual dumb guys. I know he comes back later when his book is published, but I almost wish we had seen more of this relationship and the arguments that would have come up. Other than Putty, we don't see Elaine in many multi-episode relationships, and I think this could have been a good one. Well, don't forget, we also see him with the Juji fruits. So we do get to see how Elaine fucks it up again because she stopped for Juji fruits when he got hit by a car. Yeah, I do. I know. I was thinking about that too. I said, well, the longest relationship we get to see is with Putty. That's just so funny in a different way because Putty's so stupid. And I think as the Elaine character evolves, that's all she can put up with. She doesn't want a guy that challenges her. So I think Putty in the long run is probably better for what Elaine becomes. And as we see the next time Jake shows up and that they're like close to living together, I mean, it was going really well. And then she does the Juji fruit thing. Like, she fucks it up and she's the one that acts like an idiot and offends him. So their first fight is over an exclamation point that she gets upset about. And then next, it's her sort of selfishness and stopping for Juji fruit after he got hit by a car that breaks them up. So it's like you see how Elaine sort of degrades into being like the idiots, like George and Jerry and Kramer, like the selfishness taking over her personality as time goes on. And it does end a relationship with someone who could have been really good for her, like Jake. So, yeah. I like that assessment. And I felt the same way. I was like, oh man, like I said, they had such great chemistry and I really like this actor and how he played Jake Jarmel. But yeah, it all worked out, I think, as it should have based on the evolution of the Elaine character. Greg's next thought: while the previous episode had the four weaved together in one plot, this one was completely different. Both formats work well, but sometimes I feel like some stories are shortchanged due to time when they are all doing something separately. The sniffing accountant gets a lot of time and it works because we also get a lot of Kramer and Newman greatness in it. George applying for the bra job is also an excellent premise, so I can't really detract from that either. Elaine gets the weakest of the storylines here, and perhaps that's why I don't love this episode that much. I do like her scene with Mr. Lippman to wrap it up, but it's still not enough. Same story week after week. Not enough, Elaine. Yeah, I do think that there is a little bit too much of the whole sting operation, but I can't take away from how funny, like you said, Greg. I mean, Kramer and Newman and Jerry are pretty funny together. I do love the plot with Elaine. I wouldn't call it the weakest. Maybe you meant that in that it gets the least amount of time. But yeah, like I said earlier, just a writer and an editor having a punctuation conflict. Oh my God, it's so brilliant. And because it's so brilliant, I do wish it could have had a little bit more, like maybe 3 more scenes with it. But I think it got the amount of screen time it needed, because I wouldn't want to give up any of the Costanza stuff because that stuff was brilliant. Yeah, I still think it's a really solid episode, even though they're not all weaved together. But I'll get more into that with my final thoughts. And lastly, Greg says, last side note, did you notice George is reading Glamour when Frank is yelling at him? Yes, I did. I love when they stick those little Easter eggs in there. George can't give up on the glamour. Thank you so much, Greg, for sending in thoughts this week. If you would like to become a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. All right, my favorite Elaine moments. Wow, I have a lot to choose from, and I love having that problem. So I have a few. I'm going to pick one from every significant Elaine scene. So I love in the first scene her parting words to George, "Don't forget to wash your hands before supper." So great. And the way it's shot is funny too, because you just get to see George take it in and kind of walk away dejected. I also love, well, Jake, you should learn to use them, because the way I'm talking right now, I would use exclamation points at the ends of all of these sentences, on this one and on that one. I love that. I love that the argument has her editing within the argument verbally. It's so funny. And then finally, I love, how frustrating it can be putting quarters and nothing comes out. I mean, she makes a funny fart noise with her mouth. I'm 12. What can I say? All right. And my final notes of the episode. I really like this episode all around. Every plot makes me laugh. I think it's a great balance of the main four. Again, like I was saying, not interwoven storylines, but still, I think everyone gets really solid substantive screen time. So that's what makes it balanced for me. Elaine is involved in a couple of the plots, which is fun. But I also would have loved to hear her opinion on George being a bra salesman. I think that would have been really fun. I don't even know what that would entail, not even a whole scene. But I just think a George and Elaine conversation about him being a bra salesman, she would have something to say about that. And I think it would have been really funny. This Jake Jarmel plot is so great for the Elaine character because it's a relationship issue with a female skewed interpretation of the conflict, but it doesn't feed into any stereotype that we would usually see portrayed on a sitcom, kind of what I was talking about before, those like usual archetypes that you see with female characters. This episode and Jerry and Larry writing this, they found a way to incorporate Elaine's career, her relationship persona, her headstrong personality, all into this one plot and also make it so funny. And that is not easy to do. So I got to clap for Jerry and Larry here. This plot for Elaine, I just thought was so well done. And JLD, brace yourself here. I think JLD was just a master at it. I know you guys are shocked to hear that, but she couldn't have played it any better. Loved it all. And I think that's all I can say about the sniffing accountant. Sniffing accountant. I'll just say it like that because that sounds super normal. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.